Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Multiple Calls. I'm Scott Hewlett. So episode 1 with Jordan Paris went really well. The feedback's been encouraging. There's also some very helpful criticism to improve things, which I really appreciate. Keep that coming. And so here we are rolling on. Finally got us up on iTunes, so you can find us there. And we're also on the Squarespace website, Facebook, Instagram, and SoundCloud. So if you're listening to us, you've obviously found us on one of those places. But if you're trying to help others listen to it, or you want to see some content regarding the podcast, check out those other locations. So speaking of which, I'm refacing the logo and the look of the podcast. It was brought to my attention that James Gearing of Behind the Shield, which is another firefighting podcast, uses the same hydrant picture that I have chosen for mine. So I was unaware that his podcast existed. So firstly, I'm really happy to find another one, and I'm going to start listening to it, and you should too. He's 73 episodes in, so there's quite a catalog to get into. I'm not looking to steal anyone's look. It's important to do my own thing and not step on anyone's toes, even though I spoke to him, and he's a stand-up guy, and he sees no issue. I've got a friend and colleague that's going to take some photos for me, and we're going to bring a new look to the whole thing, so I'm excited to bring that to you. So today you're going to be listening to my conversation with Peter Reid. He's better known as Zeus. Nicknames are ubiquitous in the fire service, and it's going to be interesting to hear how his came to be. He was born, raised, works, and still lives in the same city. He was a Hazmat Officer for 8 years. And he's been involved in Firefit and the Combat Challenge for years now. He was part of our department's team that won 5 Canadian National Championships and 3 World Championships. And in 2004, he was the individual over 40 World Champion. I'm really gracious that he made it up for a second recording because the first one got lost. And I'm excited for you to hear our conversation. Now I bring you Peter Reid. Zeus.
All right.
Welcome. I guess just to say... welcome back.
Welcome back.
I addressed it in the intro of the last podcast, and I addressed it again in the intro.
You didn't need to do that.
I addressed it again in the intro to this podcast.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah, I just feel horrible about it.
You don't have to. Not at all. None taken.
Today's drive wasn't blizzard conditions, but
no.
You got in a bit of a conga line with a salt truck.
Ugh. You know, there was one guy behind, and I couldn't believe what he was doing. He was like 10 feet behind the salt truck, getting blasted by the salt truck. And he just sat there.
Yeah.
Because when I went past him at, Mach 10, it was like, oh my God, look at this guy. Sitting there being just peppered. And he just sat there. He never pulled out. There was like 8 other cars go past his salt truck, and this guy just sat there getting blasted. Whatever.
In his friend's car.
Probably. My mom won't mind.
In the rental.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's start with the nickname. I think it's a good place to start. Like I was mentioning in the intro, it's pretty prevalent in the fire service in general. So it'd just be interesting to get the background on yours.
Yeah. Well, it was given at birth when I was born on a mountain. When I thought about it, it's like I said, everyone gets a nickname, but I think it's holding on to a nickname.
Yeah, for this long. It's been 35 years.
Yeah, I've had it like forever.
Right.
In fact,
and you're known better for it than your actual name, right?
Well, yeah. If somebody says Peter, it's like, okay, throw through the Scrolodex as to which Peter you're talking about.
Right. Which has happened with us, right? Like halfway through knowing you, I called you Peter one day, and it was like, what?
Yeah. Why are you being my mother?
Yeah. Which is tough also sometimes when you're introducing people to a friend or to a colleague, right? And you actually think about what's their name.
Yeah. Well, as if you're going to introduce them, okay, this is Zeus.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever. Yeah, good one, buddy.
Right. We'd all be the Duke if we could pick our nicknames.
Oh, sure, right? Yeah. So, I just feel better lucky than good.
Right.
That I managed to just keep it. It's funny because a lot of people thought it was, during those combat years. And
which we'll touch on.
Yeah. I don't mean to go there, but I'm just saying that somebody both thought that.
Right.
I was like, no, it's actually a dog.
Yeah. So how did it happen?
Well, I was playing a lot of baseball at the time, slow pitch at a very high level. So it was very competitive and everybody was trying very hard. And I was playing in the outfield, and back then I could really run, and I had a dog named Zeus. He was a 165-pound Great Dane, and after the game I would let him off, and he'd run around the field like an idiot,
Right.
arms and legs everywhere, and that's when Andy McDonald said, "Hey, that looks like Reid out there."
Right.
So it was like, wow, Zeus, and then that was it.
Yeah.
End of story. The whole team like immediately started calling me Zeus, and then it just went from there.
How far into your career?
Oh, very early.
Yeah.
Like a year.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So
This has been the whole way.
like, 32 years.
Right.
Man, crazy. A lot of people I mountain bike with, they don't even know my name.
Right. Oh, even introducing me to the new recruits when I was talking to them, right?
Yeah.
I just referred to you as DC, and I went to say Reid or something. I'm like, I said DC Zeus or something. It just sounds ridiculous.
They're all like shaking their heads.
Yeah.
What?
It's so familiar and so formal at the same time.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. So you were hired in 85.
Yeah.
Yeah.
85.
July 8th, the same day I was hired, but in 98. So
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
To the day.
Yeah.
Jeez. Born in the fire service on the same day.
That's right. So what was your path to the job? Like, how'd you end up here?
Well, it was not that far out of high school, 20 years old. I curled with the fire chief at the time.
Right. And still curling?
Which still curl. Well, I got back into curling, but
Right.
it's funny how, at the time there was probably 5-6 guys at least from the curling club trying to get on the fire department at the same time. It was a big hiring. They were hiring 24 people, which was unheard of back then, but they broke it into 3 classes of 8. So I was in the 3rd class. But, I was the only curling guy to make on department.
Wow.
So I was kind of super thrilled with that, and couldn't believe it. It's still the dream job even 33 years ago.
Right.
So,
But was it in your mind? Were you hanging out with these guys thinking, I want to do what they do? And
well, I was 20 years old. You don't know what you want to do, really. And again, I know some guys are like, no. When I was 8 years old, I want to be a firefighter.
Right.
So it was like, some people in high school said that I mentioned it because I would see them at a reunion or something, and they know you've been doing it forever and been very successful at it. And they said that I had mentioned those words in high school. So I don't recall. But yeah, it was just... But it was difficult to get on, even back then. Like, knowing the fire chief, that had nothing to do with, maybe once you got to the interview phase, but there was physicals and aptitude tests and medicals and all that stuff prior to that, and filling out your application and going from there.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right on.
So pretty lucky.
So you had a lasting experience early on with a aerial ladder,
Oh, my God.
right? So
Yeah.
how long on was that?
I was only on like a year.
Right.
So
You had an interesting first year, yeah.
Oh God, I had a crazy rookie career. I really did. Like when you look back, at Station 1 for 13 years,
Right.
down to Station 6 for a little bit when it got open. But yeah, that whole aerial ladder thing. Oh my God, it was back then. The aerial was this old T-bow, big rookety thing, and when you put that up 100 feet and you climb to the top, it was scary. That thing's moving all over the place.
Right.
So I had to do the climb for the rookie when they have this class of kids come to Station 1. So 24 kids are watching. They take the aerial out, put it up high, send the rookie up. So I climb all the way to the top, shitting my pants the whole way up. It is high, like in the middle of the parking lot. Holy cow. And you've only been on a year? Oof. So I get up there, put the foot pads down. We do a 360. You got your belt locked in and everything's good. And then you're getting psyched up for the climb down, which is even more difficult. So once the ladder lined up with the bed, I knew the whole thing was over, and I put the foot pads up and started to climb down. And then the guy operating the tower said, no, just stay there. I'll bring you down, because he knew it was sketchy to climb down. So I'd already come down a bit, and I just said, yeah, I'm good with that.
I'll just hold on for dear life.
Yeah, I'll just stand here. This will be perfect.
Right.
Until about 45 feet in the air, the ladder rungs start to cross. So it caught my boot, my left boot. So it's going up while the rungs come down, and it gets scissored through the rungs. And I see the toe of my boot touch my shin in slow motion. I was like, oh my God, this really hurts.
with a class of kids watching.
Oh yeah, the kids, you think that the kids are cheering. This is a fantastic show. It was like awesome.
How was the language?
Well, I yelled for him to shut it down, and so the rungs open up, and I pulled my foot out, and I'm standing on one good foot, and it got caught by the time he shut it down. So he had to back the ladder up to get that foot out, and then I just climbed down.
Could have been both feet.
Yeah, not hooked in, not nothing. I could end up in a heap
Yeah.
right beside him on the turntable. Would have been,
From 45 feet
yeah.
at the start of your career.
Oh my God, horrible. So
did you have to get your foot out of the boot right away? Like, how was the
that
trip to the hospital?
That was a smart thing that I did. The one smart thing that I did was to have the fortitude to think you got to get this boot out, or like you could feel your foot swelling up inside.
Right.
So they wouldn't have had to cut it out, and that would have been a horrible thing at the hospital. So I broke 2 bones, and subsequently I've ended up having so many things wrong. I had follow-up surgeries years later from the debrading of scar tissue and all that sort of thing. So it's a mess.
Yeah. And an ambulance ride to the hospital, or?
No, the DC took me, which was so hilarious because the DC at the time, they were driving these old station wagons, these old yellow station wagons that had big bench seats in the front. Well, the DC at the time, Bob Prosser, he's like 5'2".
Right.
So
and you're 6'3" plus probably.
Yeah, and I get in the front seat, and my knees are up around my ears. Oh man, too much. So,
and how was that? Like, how long were you off the job? And you just got on. It must have been pretty gutting to like just get your job, and then now you're off with this busted foot.
Yeah, it was horrible. And see, back then there weren't modified duties or anything like that. You were just off. See ya.
Were you getting paid, or was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think you're on your sick time,
but no one cares when you're that young. You just want to get in and do the job.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was killer not being there. But so long ago, I think it was just hopped up on pills and stuff to keep the pain down because you couldn't stand up.
Right.
It felt like your foot was going to explode. So
you were born and raised and still live and work all in the same city.
Yeah.
So that gives you but it gives you a pretty interesting perspective, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of benefits to being so familiar with the city. Like, you've watched it grow, almost every nook and cranny. I mean, obviously driving around, if you hear an address, it's really exploded now. So there's new areas that maybe we'll never learn, but the core of the city, you knew every.
Well, yeah, sure. My parents grew up in Brampton. Like, oh my God, we've been here a long time. But yeah, for sure. There's, the main areas of Brampton. Boy, I can whale around, and it sure is helpful. And you're able to help other guys too, in all those years in the trucks that you just know certain areas and stuff. But a lot of it back then, they knew the city as well because there was a lot of local people.
Right.
Where now it's backfilled by people who, live much farther away.
Right.
So yeah, they don't know the city as well.
Right.
So you can help them in certain aspects, response times, going to certain areas, certain roads at certain times of the day are better. And,
I actually made the comment, driving a couple shifts ago about, how much I knew an older area because it was just easier, right?
Yeah, totally.
It was smaller, and then now in this new area they're running out of street names, and
oh yeah,
I don't think I'll ever learn the area. I keep trying, but
Snow Leopard Lane.
I know, the majors, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know the majors, and you get in there, and
it's
a whole new world.
And the majors are major.
Yes.
Like Steele's Avenue now. Holy cow! Right. I got a picture of my parents' farm that was a 2-lane dirt road.
Right.
And now you could land a jumbo jet on it. It's 8 lanes wide or more. It's like 10 lanes wide in spots.
In some spots.
Yeah. But they're all like that.
Yeah.
Dixie Road's like that. Everything. Queen Street. You go to Chincoosea and McLaughlin. It's out in that area. They're all big roads. Sandalwood.
Which makes it interesting driving through them and checking all the lanes.
So many cars.
Yeah.
It's a full city.
So have you ever had concerns, like we talked about some of the benefits of being familiar with the city, but have you ever had concerns with responding to someone that you know? Like, has that ever happened?
Well, yeah, you do have a concern of that. Growing up, there's, you're going to run into some accident or house fire or something that has something to do with people you know. I had a suicide one time of a car southbound on Dixie and drove into an abutment. The car was 7 feet long when he was done doing what he needed to do. And luckily he was by himself, but I thought it was a guy that I curled with at the time.
Wow. And
I didn't know until I got right up close and like in way too close to really identify the guy. And boy, oh boy, your heart is in your throat. You don't even know what to think. It's very nerve-wracking, very emotional.
Mm-hmm. So how long did it take you to process that, to realize that it wasn't the person you thought it was?
Not that long. But time seems to slow down when you think it's somebody, because I think when you think it's somebody, then all your recollections and everything you have with that person like immediately start to flow to the front of your head.
Right.
And you start to think, oh my God, that's so-and-so. And yet you haven't you kind of don't want to know, but you need to know. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking.
So we've talked before a number of times about like the mental aspects of the job, right? And even though you afterward like very quickly processed it and realized it wasn't who you thought it was, like your brain still went through the experience of thinking it was someone you knew. Like did it stick with you that whole moment afterwards, or was it come and gone so quickly that?
Yeah, you were very glad. Geez, it's not him. Whew.
Right. But did you reflect on it days afterwards that like, so was it coming up more because of that moment you experienced?
Well, it was sort of again, because it wasn't him, you were very thankful mostly.
Right.
So I think, and then you were like, whew, got lucky there. Because you always think that eventually you're going to, living in this city as long as you have and knowing how many people you know in the city, that eventually it's going to happen. So you were very lucky and thought, oof, that was a near miss. Yeah. And then you just kind of moved on with it. Just, go back to doing your job.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing that's I'm relieved of now, moving up away from the city. Yeah. So I've responded into my own area and onto my own street. Yeah. And you definitely have a different level of concern.
I had a call one time to the house I grew up in. So we lived there for 25 years. We were the first people to move into it in Bramley Woods. So
house fire?
No, it was a med call.
Oh, okay.
So as soon as it came in, everybody's running to the map and all this stuff. And I said, yeah, I got this one. I know where we're going. Like, I mean, exactly. I know the bedroom we're going to. Like, that's funny. So when we went into the med call, we go upstairs and I'm trying so hard to focus on the call. And all I want to do is look around.
Stroll down memory lane.
Yeah, oh my God, you're in your house.
Yeah. You painted? Honestly, you painted.
It's like that bathroom is still the same. I can't believe that. It's purple.
You're still using my toothbrush.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, that happened with Hooter. Do you remember? There was the meth lab explosion in Ford's area.
Yeah.
And the same thing. He's like, I know where we're going, because it was called in from his house. He thought he was responding to his own home.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it was his wife or a family member that called about the house next door.
We relieved that crew the next morning.
Right.
And had to go out and, sift around and everything. But yeah, I do remember that.
It blew the whole bay window, the whole house. The walls came out and the roof came down, right?
Yeah.
It
exploded.
Severe. Yeah.
Yeah, no whole lot of textbook meth lab explosion.
Yeah. So talking about calls like we are, like it can be a pretty loaded topic, right? And it depends on sort of the context and company, I think.
Yeah.
So sometimes, that's due to the details, right? That can be unappealing to some people. Or more often it's asked by someone you just met. Like we just talked about meeting new people maybe out of the service, and they usually ask you this question like, what's the worst call you've ever had?
Well, you get your buddies doing that, right?
Yeah, and maybe they mean well because they're just trying to make conversation, but it's a bit of a loaded thing, right? Because you don't necessarily want to remember the worst call you've ever had.
No, and that typically doesn't come to mind. Some of those calls, you really got to start to compartmentalize certain things. As you move along in your career, you need to learn how to put things in places so that they don't come up, or that you've, through the whole peer support thing, we've discussed many times about what you need to do to compartmentalize certain thoughts so that they don't recur all the time. Right. Deal with them and that type of thing. So you can pull up calls in your head that have happened that are, very horrific. Oh my God, I could write a book, but you don't want to spout off about everything, but some are so unbelievable that they, movies do things justice. Like the way they do special effects and stuff is very real. So movies look real, but they don't come with the smells and they don't come with the emotion and, that kind of thing that you have.
Feeling the rain on your face,
on
that
top
kind of stuff.
And the smells. Yeah. The smells mostly. Yeah. That's one thing people don't. And smell being the greatest stimulant for memory. Right. We've got a ton of them.
So how do you know how you do that? Or if you just naturally built it up without knowing what your process is?
Yeah, sometimes I don't think it's as conscious as that. I think sometimes you realize, what am I going to do now? As you reflect back on a call after, and then either you get more calls on top and you haven't had time to process, and that can be bothersome. And that's why we know to have interventions with people sometimes very early so that they are aware of some tools and skills of what to do to deal with those calls. Mm-hmm. So... But everybody's brain operates different, and it really what works for you. You can read a whole bunch of articles and magazines about what you should be doing with your life, but not everything works for everybody.
Right.
So
I think for me, knowing that the question's going to just come up through life, I've almost built a bit of a catalog of like, well, when this question gets asked, I tell these stories.
yeah, you throw this bone to people and they're
Right,
like, oh,
so
yeah, that's really cool.
that are safe for you
Yeah.
and safe for them. They're party appropriate.
Yeah, and I don't, some of them they're ghastly. But
Yeah,
they don't come with names. Nobody knows anybody of
right.
of anything like that.
But I mean, they go in the box of these don't get told to people that don't need to hear them.
Yeah, some are, because it can be so horrific, doesn't necessarily mean it will imprint you emotionally. I don't think.
Right.
Like you say, sometimes those kids calls, they really cut through that type of thing. But
Especially if you have children, which you do, right? And I do as well. So.
And I'm not taking away from the fact that everything's tragic. Everything's tragic.
Mm-hmm.
But we're in the business of tragic. We respond to tragic all the time. Right. Some worse than others. It's all a matter of degrees of what it is you're responding to.
Mm-hmm.
So
we've talked to our department about this in general, and I think there was a way that we framed it that you can set yourself up a little bit, right? If you starting your career and you haven't run, kid calls is a great example. So you're telling yourself, and everyone else is telling you, kid calls, they're the worst, they're the worst. Oh my God, kid calls, and you keep telling yourself, kid calls are the worst, kid calls are the worst, and so then when you show up to the kid call, you've already told yourself for X number of years that they're the worst. Do you think that kind of sets you up for it being more impactful? And then the flip side of this is, if you're not impacted, do you feel like you're a monster because you think you should be, because everyone's told you should be?
Yeah, and all of a sudden you get that call and it's like, man, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, what's all the hype? What's all the hype about the kid calls?
Right.
But,
where it might be safer to sort of take the call as they come and react as they come.
Yeah, they are. It is what it is, and you need to just be ready. And that's the big one, is just be ready for it. That's what the job that a lot of people don't understand is, how you need to be ready for everything. Like, oh my God, it's the whole spectrum of everything you can exist or imagine. It can happen, and in places it does happen. So that whole lightning bolt thing, that we're in a lightning storm.
Right.
So
prior to the podcast, like you and I are corresponding back and forth and sort of hitting on like what topics are we going to cover, and we brought up and then you brought up about close calls. Right? Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't have to actually be a call like the ladder. That's a close call, right? It could have been worse. Could have been both feet. Is there anything else, like any?
Well, I've been a flashover in the basement, which was a real, when you see the flames rolling over your head like waves, it's like a snapshot, because it doesn't last forever. It's just the smoke ignited and everything was just rolling right over top. And I remember seeing it, and then we dove for the floor, and then once it all flashed over, it was like, oh my God, we have to get out of here. So luckily we just, grabbed the hose and just started to make our way out.
Right.
And it all happened so quickly. Everything happened so quickly, but it becomes so burned into your mind.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Actually, it was total pun. But it was, you can't get that out of your head.
Mm.
So that was more of a horrific, holy geez, you don't really realize right at that second what is happening.
And how did that experience differ and impact you than hearing about what it would be like? We have flashover containers now. I mean, even those are not, absolutely what it's like, but it's closer, and you guys didn't have that, right? So were you told about that before, or was it just reading literally a line in your textbook and then you experience, you're like, that was different than what I was told?
Yeah, again, that was a long, long time ago. That would be, 25 or more years ago, 28 years ago. Holy cow. That's a long time. And again, it was just a house fire, and we just went down into the basement doing what you need to do.
Did you pick up on any other ones after that, quicker?
Well, you were always a little nervous going down in a basement. That's for sure.
Right.
Because, again, you walk in, the John Q. public doesn't understand that, why don't you just go to any house in any neighborhood, close your eyes, and just go in and try and find something. Mm-hmm. So, it's crazy. We had a call that it was a reported house fire with people trapped. So we go inside, and this was very early in the call. So there was only 2 crews inside. The one crew located the mother. So they said there was a mother and a child in the house. and they located the mother, and they were dragging her out, and the one crew was looking after it. And then once they got her outside, and we helped take her out, there was only me and one other guy that had to go, that were packed up and ready to go into this, like a side split kind of thing. So we went in, and we were the only two that could find this child, and you knew it was on your shoulders. Oh my God, your heart is pounding through your chest. And I remember searching through, and it was so frustrating that you couldn't see anything in this house, all because of the smoke. And then I came across these sliding glass doors, and I remember whirling around and booting out a set of sliding glass doors.
Wow.
Yeah, that was real crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden, the whole room just cleared right out, right, immediately, and you could see everything we went through. And the kid didn't even end up being in there.
Wow.
But at the time, you didn't know, and it was you and your partner in there, and you were the only people that were going to be able to find them. Crews weren't even on scene yet.
Right.
And you knew time was of the essence. The mother didn't look good when she was being dragged out. So
hose line with you? Did you guys do that at that time?
we were off the hose line because the hose line was in the room, but we had got off it to do the search.
But it was in your room with you. Yeah. So we deal with these, we just touched on it before, about cognitive and emotional impacts of calls, right? We deal with them, I think, differently today than we did when you first got on. Right.
Very.
So you've seen that transition, almost like, that there would be, some of us have experienced like technology changes from, no TV to black and white TV to now, 80-inch, 100-inch, flat screens on the wall. So you've seen this shift in how we process this stuff. And
yeah, in certain regards, it's very high tech. We've got the thermal imaging cameras now, and all that kind of thing. And everyone has a radio. That's a real kicker. We used to have only the captain had a radio. So you stuck to that guy like glue. You didn't go anywhere. We didn't have man down buttons on our radios. Like it was old school.
Right. So how have you seen the change from not dealing with this emotional cognitive impacts and then or dealing with it in a certain way to how we do it today?
Well, it's so much better today. We recognize it. We recognize the positive influence and impact that it has on firefighters, to recognize that and to address it. Where, back in the day, it was, in the old days, suck it up, buttercup. We didn't even talk about it. If something was bothering you, you deal with it, buddy.
Right.
Yeah, there was no that type of, the way we address things nowadays and look at them. You didn't even think about it. You dealt with it on your own in however way you did.
But with your personality and your worldview, did you always feel like you should, or that you wanted to, or that did you feel like you were more self-aware than maybe some of the people around you? And that, because now, like, you haven't carried, what I'm saying is you haven't carried forward that gruff attitude. Either you went through a transition period where you realized and it changed, or it's always been there and you've always felt that way, and then all of a sudden it became okay.
Yeah, probably the latter. Yeah, I would say that, I would still talk to people. I think I would talk. Nobody else did, and nobody else wanted to. So, right. But that didn't stop me from, even bringing something up, or I don't know. I'm not a real hold my cards tight kind of guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm a lapdog. I like people. I like, mixing it up. So, for me to hold something in and, that just wasn't me, I don't think. So.
Have you I guess been relieved about that then, that new shift? Like, you probably enjoy the department more? You think it makes us tighter as a family?
Yeah, it's certainly more healthy for everybody. So if everybody's healthy, both mentally and physically, that's just for the betterment.
Right.
So it is for the better. I don't think I have that much of a conscious decision about that type of thing. Mm-hmm. I don't think it rolls around in my head as much as you maybe think it does.
Right. Well, it's also just a very natural thing for you,
yes.
Who you are as a person, right?
Yes.
There's no effort. It's an effortless effort.
Yes, I think so.
Did you address it differently, switching from firefighter to captain now to DC? Do you feel a bit more did you feel more responsibility as a captain to lead in a way to allow that dialogue? Do you do it now as a DC? I mean, you remember the peer support team, for a number of years now? Like, has it shifted how much it is in your mind?
There's certainly a lot more awareness now, a lot more to be able to discuss with every rank. You talk to anybody at any rank, and all have an open, free discussion about everything. And you really hope that the people you work with understand that, and not that they're okay with that, because I don't care, because I know it's good for you.
Right.
So, you know, I just think it's healthy to have discussions about certain things. And sometimes you scratch the surface of things that are a little uncomfortable, but we're in an uncomfortable job. Mm-hmm. So when we get put in uncomfortable positions. So I think the ability to be able to discuss it, or even have a chat about it. And now all it is that the peer support is that's just grounded all that and made it all for a reason. Now we know why we do it. Before we just did it, or you just do it yourself, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And now I just feel like I'm, a little, I don't want to say hyper aware, but very aware as a DC. You're responsible for your shift and half your shift, and
right.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah,
being exposed all the time. And
it does matter, right? When you have people in leadership roles that act in a certain way. And when we were talking to those recruits, Ryan was there from training, and when he was giving his little talk to them with us there as a peer support team, talking to them, he mentioned, you guys, you've never really experienced this, but you don't know how lucky you are to have a DC that's this type of personality, that's so welcoming and accommodating and down to earth, and you are, right? And I think you've probably experienced some leaders that weren't that way. So in a sense, they don't know any different, how good they have it.
Yeah.
Having people that are just people.
Yeah. If you never had anything bad, then
right.
How do you know what you have is good?
Right.
It just is what it is.
Like guys that have never done any other job but this, and they just think this is life.
But that whole DC's office is just full of all great people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone in there does a good job and is aware of everything. And
they're personable.
Yeah. Very. Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Where maybe that was, we had great DCs all the way along that were great, maybe Fireground commanders, and they had great organizational structure for rosters and that. But maybe they were missing that personable touch, right? That allowed people to realize that it was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. But it was different times. It's totally different times. Our personnel has changed. We're a very big department. We're working a different shift schedule. Like everything has changed. It's we're still Brampton Fire and Emergency Services, but it's just a different department now.
Right. So we see a lot of heavy stuff, but there's also a lot of calls that stick with us and make us feel good, right? Ones we should probably hold on to and carry us forward and maybe help us get through the tough ones, right? So what comes to mind when you see the job through that lens?
Well, you do have occasionally the opportunity to do something. Early on in my acting captain days, we had a call where a kid's leg was trapped in his bicycle, and it was trapped between the crank arm and the rear dropouts. So the way his leg was, the other acting captain was senior to me, and he made the call that we need to cut the bike here and that we're going to pull the kid's leg out. And I, as you know, I do a lot of riding, and I saw the kid, and I didn't say anything because he was very certain of this, and this is what we're going to do, and it was like, okay, I don't think this is going to work. And they cut the bike, and his leg didn't come out, and I said, can I try something? And we picked up the bike and the kid, and then gently turned the cranks over, and it just released the kid's leg. He just came out. So meanwhile, the truck that had cut his bike in half, or almost in half, they're like, okay, well, we're out of here.
Right.
And I felt so bad because it was such a simple fix, yet we still cut the kid's bike in half. So I talked to our crew, being an acting captain. I said, we gotta write this. I feel so bad.
It was gnawing at you.
Yeah. So we all chipped in, drove to Canadian Tire, bought the kid a new little bike, and drove right back to his house. Within an hour and a half of the call, we had done all of this and gave it back and gave the kid a brand new bike.
And what was that reaction like?
He was he went crazy. Couldn't believe it. His mother couldn't believe it. It was really a really big plus. Now, it's kind of above and beyond to go and, fork out your own money and buy the kid's bike, but it was I don't know. It was the whole principle of the
Split
whole thing.
between 4 people.
Yeah,
and
it was nothing.
$80. You throw 20 each,
sure.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was nothing. So.
And the value you get out of it is huge.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
Was that a lesson for you in when you should speak up and when you shouldn't? There was no damage that was done from allowing that other captain to sort of run the roost, right?
Well,
but
it's funny. There was a call that happened after that made me, when you know something, know it, own it, like stand up for it.
right.
Well, especially when you know it. He's like, well, I think we gotta, well, right there, he thinks we have to. And because he held rank over me, then, I didn't feel at that point that I had the position to outspeak him and
Right.
decide what was going to happen here. So,
And there was also no threat of severe, lasting consequences, right?
yeah.
So on a fire scene, though,
Well, it was to do with like ventilation, and this was before we had all the PPV and all that sort of stuff. Again, this is back in the old days, and I had a senior guy tell me how we should be doing this, and I said, no, that's not going to work. And we did it my way, and it worked like a charm.
right?
And I even I didn't shove it in his face a lot, but I certainly made a point to say that, I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I'm making the decision.
Which hopefully was a bit of I think we've all had those moments, right? It's a bit of a humbling learning lesson for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
To take your team's value
Yeah.
and use it.
And I heard him, but he said it several times, as in, this is what we need to be doing. And to go against somebody like that who, it was a bit of a horn locking situation on scene. Now, luckily, nobody had seen it because we were in the hall of an apartment building, but still.
Right.
Yeah.
So considering the level and the quality of hirees now, what they have to get on, right? Do you think we're doing, and maybe we even have in the past, right? And these people don't come on as blank slates, right? They come on with some life experience, maybe even, especially if they're a little older. They could have grown up on a farm and been around machinery their entire life since they were, 8 years old, working on stuff. Like, do you think we do a disservice sometimes of putting this pressure on them to, like, keep your mouth shut until you're a certain years on, and then maybe they would feel on these times where they would know something, right? And we could all value from it, yet we hold them back and we hold ourselves back by not getting to know them and letting them know they can speak up, right? When and where.
Well, and that's getting to know your crew, and I think that's a real responsibility of the officer to get to know his people and where his assets are. Everybody, like you said, everybody brings something to the table, young or old. I always thought on the trucks, you always need to show up with 4 thinking firefighters. You don't get on there like a robot and just let the captain make all the decisions and everything. You got to be thinking and seeing, because, you can't see everything. So there's going to be times where you rely on your crew for sure to see something around the back, or something as you were pulling up, or something that you smelled that you didn't smell. Like, who knows what it is. But all the new recruits that come on, they do bring exceptional experience. We're hiring rock stars now. They're all excellent people, like every single one. Like, you hired the last 34 in the class, they were 34 out of 34. They were fantastic recruits, and will subsequently be excellent firefighters. But them coming on, old or young, you need to listen to the people who have experience on the job. Even somebody who has a year experience in the job, they know where things are around the hall. They know everything on the truck. They know, they may not have had the experience of calls, but they certainly have experience of how things operate, and the hierarchy and what you need to do, and, that type of thing. But the old people need to listen to the young people, and the young people need to listen to the old people. You really need to feed off everybody. Like, we're all mixed in here together. We're all in the same ship.
Yeah, like, get to know their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
They get to know yours.
All of it.
And then you seamlessly work together, hopefully.
I think it really is mostly situational, but when you're around the hall, that's the situation. So naturally, if somebody's been on a year longer than you, they know more of what's going on.
Right.
So
that moment with you and the bike, and do you think we still offer that level of community service? Is it better now? Is it the same? Is it worse? Like, does that still happen?
Well,
should
that's
we
not
be doing
an
it?
SOG, that's for sure.
Right.
If you unintentionally cut a kid's bike in half, you will replace the bike. Like,
Right.
I've never read it. I've never read that anywhere.
Not that we've all read all the SOGs, right?
No,
right.
you should.
But do you hear of or see, like, do you feel just in general, do you think that there's a level of care for customer service and, them over us since now, or has that changed since you've been on?
Well, no, I think everybody cares. I think those are the people you're hiring. Those are the people who you're hiring, people who want to care. These are people who have worked very hard to get on this job. So, it requires thousands and thousands of dollars of education and investing in yourself. So, if you can't believe in yourself after investing in yourself, then there's a problem.
Right.
But I think the people we're hiring all do care. They come in knowing the job and again, they have sometimes blind expectations as to what they want to get out of the job. And you only know that until you start talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you think some of them experience like a disenchantment when if they get on, they think everyone's going to think a certain way, and within every industry you end up meeting people that you're thinking, what are you doing here? Right? Do you think we all experience that at some point and then align ourselves with the people that we want to emulate?
Yeah, probably. I think that when you first get on, I think you're just so pie-eyed, you're just happy to be there. Right? Every day is like key lime pie. I love it. I think it's after you've been on a few years that maybe the disenchantment starts to creep in, perhaps, if you're not running calls, if you happen to get, with people that are not as into the job as you, or, you could get an officer that's not as much into training and keeping up on skills, perhaps.
Right.
That there's people that they're getting fewer and fewer. I know that,
That's
because we're backfilling with awesome. It's nothing but,
Right.
and be pushing old codgers like me out the door.
Always the optimist, Jesus. Always the optimist. So you mentioned combat earlier on, and I mentioned it in the intro. And we were just talking about stress, and like fitness has always been a great way, right, for people like us, our personalities, firefighters, emergency services, to deal with stress, right? And we tend to we're in a very, and you mentioned mountain biking, like we've biked and snowboarded together, and you do these high adrenaline jobs, and it tends to be the stuff off the job is like, it has to be just as like high intensity as a stimulus, but it's the way we deal, right?
Well, it's kind of, I sort of think sometimes it's how we're hardwired. When I was a little kid, I'm climbing trees right to the top. Like, it's like, I don't think you should be up that high.
Right.
It's like, I'm good. Little monkey man up there. So, or riding my bike all day. We were adventurous. We were just doing stuff. And,
right.
I don't want to say not necessarily getting into trouble, but certainly pushing the thresholds all the time.
Right.
So then, you take that kid and make him an adult and put him in a profession like that. I sometimes think, what do you think's going to happen?
Right. What'd you expect?
Yeah. Holy cow. It's
right.
like, what's that? Oh, that's Combat Challenge. Wow. Looking good.
Yeah. And then, speaking to that, right, certain people can see something like that and think, I'll just participate. Right?
Yeah.
They're just going to participate in it. And then some people may have a completely different attitude where it's like, I want to win that. I want to be the best at that.
Well, I think, and again, certain kids were, the 5-star Cubs, when you were in Cubs, it's like, well, I want to get my bronze lanyard and I want to work towards this. And you're reading through the book and I think I can get this badge, and this badge will take me to this star. And, that type of, or, and there were kids there that were like, hate Cubs. This place sucks.
Right.
Mom drops me off every Thursday night. I hate it here. But I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Right.
And, went through years of Cubs and then Scouts. And so you're always trying to, achieve things. And I wasn't beaten at home as in you go out there and be the best at everything.
That's right. Right.
So,
right.
I think when you just start doing something, you think you can get better at it. And then
right.
all of a sudden it's a competition. Well, now it's game on.
Right. So what was your first introduction to the Combat Challenge? And then you had I want to do that.
Yeah. Well, we saw it on TV.
Okay.
So it was like, wow, look at that. A firefighter competition doing firefighter stuff. So we tried to track it down. And again, this is pre-internet, which, accessibility of information now is crazy. Like it's just everywhere. You can get anything at the touch
So
of a
from
button.
the couch, watching it on the TV,
Yeah,
you can literally
you know,
Google it and get the
you start
information on
writing
it.
stuff down. Yeah, you couldn't watch it again. Like it didn't loop like that. There weren't 800 channels. There was only, you know, this was very rare to see. And it was almost like a flash. And how do I find that out? And
Right.
I kind of remembered the department that won it. They were from Casper, Wyoming. So I start, you know, figuring out how to get in touch with Casper, Wyoming.
You pulled out your atlas.
I don't know what I did. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You start phoning, you know, operators and can you put me to here? And then, you know, things would go dead. It would take a long time to actually find out, you know, who was doing this, who on Casper, Wyoming, who are these guys?
And how do we get in?
Yeah. So then they put us on to something to who was actually On Target was the company in the States that was doing the challenge. So then I finally got in touch with them. And they said, oh, yeah, we're having a competition, you know, next spring. It's in Springfield, Massachusetts. And, yeah, come on down. I said, well, you know, we're from Canada and we're coming down. Yeah, absolutely. Come on down. So
You're harmless. Get down here.
Yeah, come on, you good little Canadians.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll show you how things are done.
Yeah.
So how was it done? How did it go?
Well, you know, there's a bunch of us and, you know, again, you're trying to sell it to people and everybody's coming up and trying. And eventually we had this core group that decided to go down. And at one time, one of the guys in our job worked for Bristol and they gave us a bit of money to pay for the entry fee and gave us some gear that we could wear that was lighter because we kind of researched into what was going on and how we could be a little better and practiced everything we could. So we go down to the Springfield, Massachusetts meet. And it was huge. There was 36 teams there. It was massive for a regional at the time. And don't we win it? Oh my God, like jaw dropping. It was like, what?
Right. By a significant margin? Were you squeaking by or was it like?
No, we didn't kill anybody, but we won.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, we beat this team that was on TV because,
Right.
you know, they were talking about the TV team from Springfield. You'll never beat them. And
How surprised were you versus everyone else? Was it everyone just stunned or
yeah,
was it?
totally stunned. And
Okay.
the funny thing was we had T-shirts made up when we went down there. They had the demon on the front and then on the back, they had this big red maple leaf that said Canada over
Right.
the top of it. Like,
Right.
like, oh my God. And these, like the six of us walking around with all these shirts on.
Right.
And at the end of it, they couldn't give us all the prizes because they thought we were from Brampton, Connecticut. And I said, well, really? Like, did no one see our matching T-shirts that say Canada on the back with big leaves on them? Oh my gosh! So yeah, instead
So you went home empty-handed?
well, they gave us a dummy that had been dragged 3,000 miles. It was bleeding pellets all over our van the whole way back. Oh my God!
It was more of a hindrance than a help.
Well, we were supposed like the back then booty was big.
Right.
Like you would have got 5 sets of combat boots, 5 sets of bunker gear, jackets, a brand new dummy. Like it was incredible.
Just for first place.
Yes.
Wow.
I couldn't believe what they
Set
were
your team
handing
up
out.
for the future. And,
Yes. Here you go.
Yeah. Go back to
Cool.
Brampton, Connecticut.
Yeah. Brampton, Connecticut. We're north of that.
So from that, you know,
Wow.
on the way to, you know, 5 national championships in Canada and 3 world championships, like what was that journey like?
Well, we had a fire under our butts, that's for sure,
Right.
after that. So we went back and we started to take the game very seriously and
Mm-hmm.
tried to figure out, you know, how to do it and, you know, how to do it better and faster and what you need to do physically and all that sort of thing. And then as years progressed, then we started to be noticed after that, that's for sure.
Right.
And then in comes all the other Canadian teams. So Canada became very strong and our strengths over the years, because we've had so many Canadian teams win worlds. Oh my gosh, like Ottawa won worlds and
Windsor.
well,
Have they?
Windsor and
Yeah.
then Kamloops and Delta and Hamilton and Oakville and oh my God, like we're a powerhouse
Right.
in the world of combat challenge and firefit.
And a number of
So-
those teams, ours being one of them, have won 5. They've got their name on the Canadian trophy 5 times.
Yeah, well, Windsor, you know, it was all kind of the way teams. You kind of handed the torch off to the next team because you can't do it forever. You can't
Right.
stay on top. The sport's too hard.
Mhm.
So you know, you have your years of being
dynasty.
to be in the dynasty, and that's
Right.
exactly it. And you know, it went from us, and then it went to Windsor, and then it went to Kamloops, and then it went to, you know, all the other subsequent teams in Oakville and Hamilton. And like I said, they've all they've all worked their way through. But it's the team. It's a strong team.
And it's interesting how, if you consider how competitive we are, right, as personalities, that how supportive and friendly and the camaraderie and the brotherhood and the family of that microcosm of the fire service, right? You've got the fire service in general, then you've got your country. It's just like sports, right? And then you've got your city, right? Then you've got your shift,
Yeah.
right? And then your crew, and then really the tiniest microcosm is like you've got people that participate in something like this, right?
Yeah, well, and it really is the job. Oh my gosh,
Right.
you train to do, Firefit in Canada and Combat Challenge on the world stage. It is the job. That's what you're training for. You're the best guy on scene with breathing apparatus. Oh my gosh. So it can't help but make you a better firefighter.
Right.
Like immediately.
And you don't even realize, I think, if you started doing the job, I noticed that, right? So like I started to do it while I was in recruit class. That was our first introduction to each other. You walked in with Brent and, I hear you're the combat guy. And as a recruit, you're like, no, I'm not. I don't know how that happened. Tell a firefighter. All of a sudden, I just must have uttered it. Oh, look at that. I want to try that. And all of a sudden, oh, you're the guy.
Yeah.
And you guys drew me into the fold right away. And so I started training at that level right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And then I didn't notice until after I went back down to say you can't maintain that forever. You can maintain a high level of fitness, but that's above and beyond. So until you start doing like just basic fitness stuff, you don't realize how much easier and lighter things were when you were training at that level.
Yeah, no, it got to elite level. Like we were, it was sort of like, it got to be like Olympian stuff. You were that focused on what it was you were doing and focused so much on legs and lungs. Like you were really a very powerful machine.
Right.
So, but again, getting back to the whole camaraderie of the sport, it's like an elite job, and these are the elite people of that job, and everybody's so helpful, which you'd find in a lot of sports. You're not like that. You're my enemy.
Right.
But I think everybody sees beyond that. This is about our profession. That's where it came from. It's not as though it was in front of our profession. It came as a result of our profession. So I think everybody never loses sight of that. And you're just getting talked to people, and it gives you an opportunity to speak to people all across Canada and North America and even the world.
Right.
I've had conversations with people when, later on after everything, you get down to the nuts and bolts and you just start discussing business, the fire business. It's so amazing how many people across our country, we all do the same job, but we do it so differently. All their procedures and equipment and what it is you use and how you use it, and it's so different. And yet we all go to house fires. They go to apartment fires. Here's a truck rollover on a highway. It's all kind of the same response.
And the job gets done.
Yeah, and the job gets done. But we all do it so differently. Yeah, it's I find that all very interesting.
And then you transitioned from all of that and stayed in it, right? Reffing and coaching the next people coming up.
Yeah, I had a real luxury. I worked very hard the last year I did individual. I won the world over 40 and set a world record, the first over 40 to go under 130 on the U.S. course. At the time, it was like a huge thing.
Right.
But I knew my knee couldn't take it anymore,
Right.
and that was it. And I didn't want to push at that level, because every time you went, you had to go harder. And then after you did that, it's like, well, that's really good, but what more do you have? And you got to,
It never ends.
More.
It never ends. Yeah.
It never ends.
Right.
So I knew I wanted a little bit of longevity and be able to ride my bike and snowboard and stuff like that. So having kind of been there, done that, I was ready to kind of transition out of that, and refereeing was a good one. I just started doing it, and then you felt that you were helping, and then next thing you know, people were saying, "Wow, you really helped me there," you're talking me through the dummy drag, that kind of thing. So then you felt like you were giving back more.
Yeah, I had the same experience reffing. Yeah,
and that really transformed. Not to mention we were hosting. We hosted 6 regional events and a national event. A national event is huge, and everybody worked so hard, and our city was so well showcased when we hosted nationals.
Right.
And we're in such a good position. Everybody can easily get to Toronto, and we're like 15 minutes from the airport. So it was a very handy place to host nationals. So it was a great event. A lot of work, but it was a great event.
So with all that put in, I mean, it's we never think about, we're never in it to get recognized. It's a very personal challenge and goal, and about your teammates and about meeting people, and just that experience is a gift in itself, right? But it is nice. It's a nice surprise. It's a real gift when you are recognized. So tell me about the Firefit Award for sportsmanship that you have named after you. Like, that's a pretty significant thing.
Well, I was so taken back. Well, you can't believe what was happening, at the Nationals, where I was just refereeing, but I was sitting with a bunch of guys at the back, and there's 300 people at the banquet. And the guys that are, two of the guys at our table, they knew that I was getting this award. And actually, they knew I was being recognized for the whole thing. So they're feeding me doubles all night. Oh, my God.
Really doing you a favor.
Oh, yeah. Bastards. So then at the front, Dale started talking about my career in Firefit. And I'm sitting away at the back, and, we're at Nationals, and I would hand the awards. And what's he talking about me for? Like, I couldn't believe it. Then he's going on and on and on about it. And next thing you know, he says, well, let's get Peter up on stage, shall we? You had to almost pull me up there. I'm like, right. What? No way. Oh, my God. So I dragged my butt through all the chairs all the way to the front, because we were sitting way at the back. And he comes up and then starts going on that they want to name an award after me. I didn't know what to say. I was stunned. I was shocked. Are you sure? Because I'm looking out in the audience, like, why not him or him or him? Like, all these other people.
And that's just the way you are, yeah.
Not only I had to point out that I'm not dead, because I thought
usually it's just posthumous, right? Yeah,
very much so.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, don't you have to get dead to be an award named after you?
I pictured floating above myself.
Yeah, am I still here? So, then they went and then they wanted me to say something. Oh my gosh, I was a mess. I didn't know what to say.
No prep.
Oh, none.
And not at your normal alcohol level.
Oh. It was brutal. I think the first thing I said was, well, I'm probably going to swear here. Oh, gosh.
So, having experienced that level of brotherhood, the family and the fire service, right? Thinking about that and thinking about it in general in the fire service, and seeing the growth of our department. Because, when you first got on, and I really feel when I first got on, that the department was small enough that you could really get to know everybody and they got to know you, right? And now we just keep exploding with class after class. And you've really watched it go from grassroots, to the we're a city of, 600,000 people.
Yeah,
plus,
oh, for
right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Really pushing and only growing, and the department growing with it. So have you seen, like, the brotherhood and family of the fire service, that sort of feel wax and wane, like, over the years? Like, where is it now? Is it still the same? Is it different? Can we?
Well, yes and no. A lot of things are better now, for sure. Yeah, we're everybody's having meals. Guys don't realize we always used to fend for ourselves. This guy's having peanut butter sandwich, and this guy's having ravioli, and Buddy's over here cooking mini pizzas, and
See, I would have thought that was the main tradition that was always there.
No, and then we would have, on Friday, the week of days, with the different shifts that we work, we would have a big roast beef dinner there. And then on Sunday of the split shift, when we worked the Sunday day shift, we had our big breakfast.
So really, the Sunday breakfast is the only thing that's survived, really.
Yeah.
But the brown bagging, it has changed to
totally.
2 meals a day.
Oh, 2 meals. Well, with the different shifts, but we're all cooked together and we all eat together, which is a fantastic thing. I think crews have really knitted together in how they deal around the hall. I think crews are very tight. I don't think other shifts get that tight because, again, we don't have the transitions we used to. And again, we're working, let's call a spade a spade. We're working the 24-hour shift, and it has a lot of downsides to it that you didn't have with the luxury of growing up with the different shift. I thought that other shift had many more transitions. And because you worked shorter periods of time, you could maintain a high level of intensity for a shorter period of time. Where now we're in for the long haul. You go to work for 24 straight hours, come hell or high water, you have no idea what your day's going to be. Right. So, and I know you get to go home at the end of it, but still you don't have the transition. You relieve a certain crew, and then when you leave in the morning, a different crew relieves you. So you don't see everybody that much.
And you'd mentioned before, before we were doing this, that with the old shift, you would see the same crew 6 times in a row.
Well, and having worked a day shift and a night shift and a split shift, which was 2 days and 3 nights. So of those 3, just the 3 nights on the split, you'd come in Monday night and see the crew, and then you would see them Tuesday morning, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Mm-hmm. There's like 5 or 6 changeovers in just 3 days of just the split shift.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of intangible transition of information, both personal and with the job.
And work-wise.
Yes. Hey, how was your kid's recital last night? That kind of thing. And you saw them and, oh, you got that thing tonight? And, you just saw each other a lot more.
Right.
Where now you just see somebody in the morning, they relieve you, and then you see somebody else the next day. It's very impersonal. Yeah. You discuss what you need to do about the truck, and that's it. But you want to get out of there. You've been there for 24 hours. Your family's waiting for you. They've been... in whatever way, shape, or form your family takes or whatever. But, the work-life balance was there more, where now we only come into work 7 days a month. So although we are, the new people coming on who don't even know any better.
Yeah, they might be missing out on some things, you think?
Well, definitely. I think they are. Right. But they're just so happy to be there. They're firing on all cylinders for a full 24 hours. They're just... But it's, for those of us who worked, I worked 29 years on the old shift.
Right. But Jordan and I discussed, though, that you can make the most of any shift, right? That it's a mentality where if you have so many days off in between now, you can easily pepper in a day to go mountain biking. But it just takes caring and effort.
Yeah, it didn't happen. Now you have to work at it, where before it happened very naturally.
Right.
I'm working, 3 nights, so it's nothing to come in a couple hours early. I have to come in anyway. Right. So I bring my bike and we ride and then we go to work. Where now, you leave in the morning. It's like, oh, I got to get home. And then you're tired and the next day can be affected by however your night was. Some crews sleep the whole night. Other crews are out 5 times after midnight. Oh my gosh. That'll leave a mark the next day for sure. So, I find it's just not my cup of tea.
Right. But I mean, being in a democracy, right, that someone wants to champion change, and if enough people back it, then it ends up happening, right? And you and I have talked too about how...
Can you see my eyes rolling?
Yeah. About how what job you're doing within that shift matters too, right? You and I have reflected on, like, I'm still riding backstep.
Yeah.
Riding backwards, and it's a different deal for me than it is for you as a DC.
Yeah. And again, the position, it took me several years to become a DC. I didn't fast track anything. I wrote 3 times for captain and 3 times for DC. I've been around the block in the whole world of exams and that whole process, and nor did I ever want to. I guess it wasn't 100% my forte. That's just not my deal. Yeah, but I just worked hard at it and just stayed at it. So, but the job has certainly changed from where I was initially trying to pursue that position. It's not what it was. And now it's for 24 hours.
Right.
So holy cow, it's a long time to stay that engaged and have that much responsibility on you.
Sure.
We have so many people now. We've got like 102 people per shift. Holy cow. Still being managed by two managers. Yeah, we have a PC, but we don't try and rely on them as much for a lot of things, and they have their own jobs. They're very busy as well. So
it's a lot of cats to herd.
Oh, huge bag of cats.
Right. So, trying to make changes like that, right? If it doesn't have to be a shift, but any kind of change. And I spoke to Jordan about this too, right? About how we get into jobs because we want it to be different all the time, and we want change, yet we want things to stay the same simultaneously. Yeah. But so, making these changes is challenging, right? Not everyone's like, oh yeah, change, that's amazing, let's do that, right? So it takes work. Have you ever tackled any kind of like major undertaking to change something within the department?
Well, the change, if the change is change is inevitable. That's just it. I've said to so many people when they're at their hall, it's like, oh, well, I don't want to write because I don't want to move halls, and I don't want to, I like my crew and all that sort of thing. It's like, if you don't move, everyone else does.
Yeah. So
the dynamics and how things are at a hall, they're constantly evolving and changing. So I think that as long as the change is for the betterment, I'm all for it. But that whole change for the sake of change, hey, let's just shake things up just to shake things up to show that you have the power to shake things up. I think that's an abuse of power sometimes.
Sure.
To change for the sake of change.
So have you seen anything that needed to change or that you thought could be made better and you decided to champion it? And
Well, yeah, we, at one point, our station where we looked like janitors. We had the blue pants and the light blue shirts,
Right.
and all we were missing was the whole ring of keys on your thing.
yeah, you had to come in Class A's, right?
Oh man.
Okay, so let's walk me through that process. What your day would be like.
So I would ride my bike into work, and we would have lineups in front of the trucks in dress uniform with a hat and everything. So I would have to ride my bike into work, change out of my riding clothes into my dress uniform, go down and have lineup so that we, that's how they did the roster, and that's how we switched over with crews. We didn't
Person per person facing in the...
We didn't do man for man. We did the whole crew.
Okay.
So
yeah, but I mean the whole crew and lining up facing who you're changing with.
Yes. It was like we were going to have some sort of lineup for a hockey game or something like that.
Right.
Your crew's on your side and these guys are on this side, and everybody's there, and they're inspecting everybody to make sure you had your hat and all this sort of stuff, and all in dress uniform. And then we would go and change into our fatigues for the day. And at the end of the day, I'd change out of my fatigues in my dress uniform, do our lineup, exchange with the other crew, and then go up and change again into my riding stuff, and then ride home.
But if you had to do inspections during the day, did you not have to go back in your dress uniform again?
Yeah, we did. We did. Inspections.
So did you ever get caught
uniform.
with a call in your dress uniform?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, you would lose the tunic.
Right.
But, wool pants, they were less than comfortable.
But then it gets all sullied, and then you got to come back, and you got a messed up dress uniform.
For sure.
You were changing.
Oh, nonstop.
Nonstop.
Yeah. I needed some Clark Kent glasses. I was just changing so much. Where's the phone booth?
So yeah, did you?
So that not doing that now, that's pretty good.
Right. So how did that change? Talk me through when and how did that change?
Boy, I'm not 100% sure about that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
But you saw something about what you wore around the station, and you thought.
Well, yeah. Getting back to that, I was around the hall, and we used to wear these Scott McHale's around the hall. These were your day-to-day shoes. Well, they were leather bottom dress shoes that just got destroyed because you wore them around the hall, mopping and cleaning trucks and all that sort of stuff. They got worn in, so they're leather bottom shoes around a wet floor all the time.
Right.
They were the worst thing we could possibly wear. There was no support in them. They were horrible. So I had thought we got to have something better than this. So I went and researched these Nike Air Cross trainers, black, $100 running shoes, and at the time, half the old codgers on the job, they'd never worn a pair of $100 running shoes.
Did some of them love the shoes? Did everyone hate the shoes?
Well, I went to a store and bonied up with them and said, what was going on and what I was trying to do. And they gave me a bunch of sizes. And I went to every hall on every shift and showed them these shoes and said, we could have these shoes if we all come out and vote on them. And a lot of guys were like, oh, you don't mess with our collective agreement and our clothing issue. And, you just don't go near that, you young pup.
Right.
And I'm like, this is going to be so much better. And everybody would put them on and go, well, these are pretty comfortable shoes.
Everyone balks first until it's proven, right?
Oh, my gosh. So then, it got voted, and I had to go back and forth to several union meetings.
All unpaid?
Oh, yeah, I was all 100% of my own time.
Right.
Back then, there was no time owing. There was no overtime. Those words weren't even, you didn't put in for anything.
So you took it on.
If a guy was a half an hour late, you waited for him, and that was just tough beans, and, you'll get him somewhere else in your career. Nobody's going anywhere. So we finally, after I go through all the rigmarole of going to all these union meetings and having people come, and, he kept having to go back because I didn't know the whole exact procedure with it because I was really treading on unhallowed ground here, or hallowed ground. So I eventually got them through, and then here it is, Station 1 one day. There's like 200 boxes of Nike Air Cross trainers in there. What a coup! It was amazing. And everyone loved them.
Were you a firefighter when you did this?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so how did that feel when you saw it come to fruition? Next thing you know, everyone's wearing the shoes, and all that effort you put in made it happen.
It was so neat. I was so proud of it and everything. I was like, oh, look what I did. Meanwhile, everyone loved them. That was the biggest thing. Everyone loved them. So for a couple of years, Nike Air Cross trainers were the selection of what you could get on the job. And then it all went to green patch, and we should be wearing safety boots. Right. We should be more safe than this. What if you drop a bottle on your foot?
Right.
Well, these are so light, you'll get your foot out of the way in no time.
Right. So do you believe strongly then, having that experience, that you can produce change in a fire department from any position? You just got to pick it up and champion it and run with it.
Yeah, if it's
and fight against all this the pushback you're going to get.
Yeah, and depending on what it is you're doing, you know what I mean? If it is change for the sake of the betterment of everyone, not just some personal thing that, well, I'd really like underwear, although I think underwear is a good thing.
Sure. For most of us, yeah.
Yeah, well, we should be wearing, dry fit underwear and everything, or everything that's better for you. So, we get into a job that's very physical and you'll be sweating and working out and that type of thing. So you should have the proper clothing on.
Right.
Definitely. I have a big thing for that, for the whole uniform. I'm big on that. I like having, there's a few guys I bust their chops all the time. Yeah.
Well, especially, you've mentioned too about, when you're in public, right?
Oh my gosh, we're so
about the curtain going up and
when those doors go open, it is showtime. Mm-hmm. Training's over. Practice is over. It's go time now. And everyone is filming you. Everyone is filming you. Every house fire you go to, even when you're working on Grandpa's chest there, pounding on him, doing defib and everything, somebody's going to be filming you. This is the most shocking thing they've ever seen in their life. And everyone has a phone. And they're not afraid to use it. Mm-hmm. The whole world has become very bold in posting and commenting and having their opinion on things. Meanwhile, they don't really know what they're talking about.
Yeah, look what I saw today. It's not about you, not about the person you're helping. It's look what I saw.
Yeah, and next thing you know, everybody in other departments is scrutinizing what it was you did, either good or bad. So, you can look like a rock star or you can look like a failure. Mm-hmm. So it's your choice. It's totally your choice. So that gets back to the whole rookie thing and first class thing and everybody working together as a team and realizing how their perception's going to be, because public perception, we're being paid by the public. That's our salary is based on that. So we really need to perform for them, and you don't get a second chance. That's it. You're being filmed right now. Right. Screw up or again, like I said, being a rock star. You can look really polished.
Yeah.
So
how do you feel about these guys that think we go and do some training on something and they've been exposed to it, but they haven't learned it. Right? So these guys that get exposed to something and think 5 years from now I'll just be able to rise to the challenge and replicate that.
Yeah. You won't. Not at that time. There's so much pressure and so much other things going on when the actual shit is hitting the fan, like when this is really going down. We've got reports of this and, we've got flames visible and people trapped and, cars in the driveway, and we get calls like that. So it's difficult to stay that focused all the time on every call, every time, every time the tones go off.
Right.
So you just have to really know when you need to perform, which is all the time, really. And again, it goes back to that's what you're being paid for. You're a professional. That whole amateurs practice to get it right and professionals practice so they don't get it wrong. Right. So I love that statement. And we're professionals. We're in a professional union. We're doing a professional job in a city that we don't have any part-time. We're it. So you have to act like it, be it, look like it. Everything that there is, all the different aspects of it. I think you should really recognize what they are and try and hit 10 out of 10.
Right.
So
how did you find it easy to, and how did you impart that as a captain and now as a DC? Did it evolve? Did you grow into that mentality? Was it always there? Did you have any challenges? There's a lot of questions loaded into one, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
All of a sudden you're a leader and you have this mentality and not everybody with you might.
Well, I got made up and I went immediately to Station 4 to work with the crew out there. And, that's the hazmat crew, which is, if you can run a hazmat call, you can run anything. It's very in depth. There's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot going on. It's hurry up and wait. And I had an exceptional crew out there working with those guys. And it was, it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of great times and we worked very hard. We trained very hard. And I had this thing for the awning on our hazmat truck, and we practiced the awning ad nauseum, and they always got so mad at me. It was like, I guess we're doing goddamn awning training again today. But I'd always pointed out, it's the first thing you set up when you roll up on scene. You need the protection, you need the isolation, you need the privacy, you need to be able to create that space to get your gear out, to set everything up and that sort of thing. And that's going to be the first thing you set up. So I've seen you guys set up that awning. Is that what you want to look like? We might as well pull up and play circus music so that while we're trying to set up the awning.
Right.
Oh,
this is our best.
Oh, Lord.
This is what we're paying all this money for?
They can't even get the awning set up.
Yes.
Or it's taken 25 minutes to get the awning set up.
Right.
So, and
Is that an instruction booklet? Are they honestly thinking they can read this and learn it right now?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It says put this in slot A. Oh, man. But, they practice, and they got very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could set it up like nothing. It was like, which looked super professional.
Right.
And, we only had a couple real, necessary hazmat calls. But again, boom, bang, looking pro.
Was that a breakthrough then for you, making that shift with the crew? Did they realize then that transitioned into, well, the next thing you train on, like did it change mentality?
I think, because we were always doing training anyway, they knew the seriousness of it and what you needed to know. And, back then we had Hazmania going and, they understood what training we necessarily had to do. And there was full buy-in. Everybody was into that sort of thing. But this whole awning thing, what's with the awning thing all the time? Oh, my God, let it go. It's like, yeah, but we look so bad.
Right.
And that's going to be the first thing we do when we pull up. And nobody could kind of get their heads around the necessity of being sharp when you first pull up. You don't jump off with circus music playing. You get off with purpose and do things professionally and
worry about the more important things.
Well, it was funny that I think that was important right off the hop.
Right.
Yeah, there was other things going on as well.
Yeah.
Gathering information and isolation,
but
and
details
setting up zones
matter
and that sort of thing. But then, that's part of your operations is going to be getting ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
did you ever experience any major pushback when you tried to impart this professionalism? I mean, Jeff Clayton's going to be coming up on our next episode, which I'm really excited about. And one of the things I'm stealing a little bit of thunder here, but he said, and then Jordan talked about it he said, you have to care. That's where it has to start. You have to care. And Jeff has always framed it as, if you could teach passion, you don't teach anything else, because people will just seek it out on their own, right? But have you had that experience where you've had to get through pushback and get that solved before you can even get to what you need to do?
Yeah, you do need to care. I call it the give a shit factor. Like where the needle is on that. Are you flatlining that you just don't care about anything? Like it's really low, or you do have to care. You do. And I think a lot of people, they're hired because they are caring people. Mm-hmm. But again, you don't want to get into that whole complacency thing. That's the most evil weed that can grow in our field. So we want to try and recognize that and nip it. But I think we're getting better at it. I really do. I think everybody has a better attitude about things. And again, we're backfilling with great people who don't have that. So it's trying to keep that as long as we can. I said that to the last rookie class. You guys are the shiniest pennies we have. You want to try and keep it.
Right.
Try and get.
And what we do with pennies? We get rid of them.
Bad analogy.
That's right. How you
finding? A lot of them are going to go, "What's a penny?"
Right, exactly. That's when it's time to leave, right?
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm out of here. How are you finding your current roles at DC? How's that been?
Challenging. It's a lot of work, and again with the schedule, I think that's what really hurts. It's we don't have the help that I think we should have. We don't have an administrative assistant, yet a lot of our job is administrative. Mm-hmm. There's administrative assistants in every other division except ours. I don't want to be bleeding all over your microphone, but
it's the reality.
It is the reality. So, you could definitely use some help in there. And again, it's a lot of computer stuff. I don't even own a home computer. But that's just not my bag. That's not my bag. And it is other people's, which is fantastic, and, rock it out. I think, and again, that rolls back to everybody's skills and to be able to rely on other people. And we are a family in that we should be able to rely on one another. And each division feeds other divisions. We're not at war here. We're all wearing the same uniform. Good Lord, people, have a look. So, and if you're good to everybody, they'll be good back to you. Right. So I don't know why people get mad at other people in other divisions for certain things. Right. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to do what they can.
Yeah. Did you just hear about this call on your own? Did someone have to tell you? Did this truck just appear and it just runs automatically?
Yeah.
The gear you're wearing, did you make it?
And if you thought we're more all on the same team, I think things would operate a lot smoother interdivisionally, for sure. So there wouldn't be any. And again, I think we're backfilling with people who are very good and don't see those barriers.
Right.
So I think those things are coming down block by block.
It's a real humility thing after everyone has done what they're supposed to do, and allows you at the end user to be, showtime, lights on, nozzle works, hose works, pumps work, the trucks are running, all of it.
Well,
and you do your amazing thing and you walk away thinking, I did that. when you were the last person, do you know what I mean? And I've mentioned this too about fire prevention as well. I'll sort of make a mention of them too, that they never get kudos for the 10,000 fires that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's
right. But
hard to quantify.
But think of how many lives they've saved from doing their work.
Yeah.
But because of the difference of what we do on the emergency scene, we tend to see ours as the most important of everything.
Well, yeah, because people are in trouble at that point. But I see your point for sure. Well, fire prevention, that's half of our mission statement, right? Is to prevent fires.
But you wouldn't be able to do that most important thing in that moment if you didn't have everybody else.
Yeah. But everyone needs to be trained very well. Everybody needs to know their role and be very good at it. Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to us being professionals. I keep harping on that, but we are. We're not willy-nilly. We've got a lot of structures in place that we need to, follow and have a good time doing it. It doesn't have to be this hard thing. We all get along. We have great attitudes, and I think that is getting better and better all the time. So
to shine a light on the DC's office a little bit. So, because I think sometimes, having done work in the training division, I think there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding. Unless you've been doing the job, you don't appreciate it, right? I mean, if everyone spent time working in every division, I think we'd all appreciate each other more. I think there's a lot of ignorance there. Right? We just think, oh, what do those guys do? Or what do they do? Or how hard is that, right? It's just all based on ignorance. So, and you've mentioned about, the level of work involved in the DC's office, and, every phone call you get, and I experienced this in training, that, you get a phone call, and rightly so, for something important, but sometimes there's this mentality that their phone call is the only one you're getting that day, and you're just sitting around waiting for them to call for their loo day, right?
And you mentioned going that 30 seconds.
Yeah, and you mentioned you go into every hall and you're always getting the shirt tug. Hey chief, hey chief, hey chief, right? And that's you just show up in their hall for that little bit of time, and they get you, but you're getting that everywhere, right? So
well, yeah, and that's where a lot of guys don't realize that each hall you go to, people want to know things. They well, what have you heard? What's the gossip? What's going on? Well, I heard about this. Is that true about this? And you're always have to be mentally switched on to know everything that's going on. Like nobody else is listening to a radio all day for the entire shift. Mm-hmm. It's a lot to. Well, didn't you hear me say that? It's like, I can't hear everything. Oh my gosh, I go crazy. Right. But yeah, you do. It's just the nonstop of that position, and your only break is kind of driving around Brampton,
which is not a break.
That's not a break.
No. And then emergency driving in a pickup truck, which is not seen and heard as well as a larger pumper or an aerial.
Yeah. You got to be switched on.
Right.
I've told Gord I'm the best driver in the city. Knock on wood, I've never scratched anything.
But mentally taxing, right? And then if you end up running some calls through the night, on top of that, like by the time you get off your shift. So.
And they talk about fits, and we're, Eddie Davis is championing that. And I see the need for them where you kind of want them. I've been on the job long enough that I know where I need help. So don't tell me where I'm you're just going to shove it down my throat. Here's this guy, and you're going to train him, and you're going to do this with him, and this is what's going to happen. And I don't think that washes very well. I've been on the job 4 times longer than this person, and they're going to be doing certain things. I know where I want the help. I know what somebody can do. To try and operate that computer, the MDU, while you're navigating traffic and everything. I want somebody to run that. Somebody to pull up the pre-plans. I want a co-pilot.
Right.
So
basically speak to the people. If you're going to offer people help,
ask them where they want their
that
help.
Speak to the people that do the job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
and they'll let you know.
Yeah, we're all aware of the fact that certain people are making decisions for people who they don't really come to you for opinions or where we, and sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. Where maybe they should.
Right.
So
it's not a help, it's a hindrance sometimes.
Well, it can be. Don't make my job worse.
Right.
So, but I like having the influence on more crews and that type of thing. Because I hope I can instill a positive influence on people. I don't like grumbling too much. We have bad days too, where things aren't really rolling well, but everybody does. And you hope that people have a bit of, yeah, I get that. I get that you have an off day. I get that you just want to sit down and just be nice to watch a couple innings of a J game or something like that, or, to be able to have a bit of downtime. I can't even seem to get a workout in. But those are my own choices, so I don't belittle anybody for that.
So do you have any? I mean, we've mentioned professionalism quite a bit, which is really important. But
too much.
Too much. I don't think you can mention it enough. Honestly, I don't think you can. It's a good reminder. Do you have any advice that you give any of the ranks? Do you have any? If we went by rank, and do you have like some general advice? Do you have advice per rank? You could in the ranks that you've participated in along your way. Like if you had to go back and tell your firefighter self and your captain self, and pretty soon you're going to be retiring, and it's not too far off, and you could give your DC self some advice.
Maybe look a little down the road at your career, and you might in the younger stages of your first class pay more attention to what's going on. Like you have to know your job, and I know you and Jordan talked about that. You got to know your position and where you are, and be very good at that. And again, have a lot of pride. When you put your uniform on, be proud of that. Lots of people, like you said, they're dying to have your job. So don't look at it as in, oh God, I got to go to work. Everyone does. So newsflash.
More often than you do.
Yeah, I don't even smack you in the forehead there that you have to have a job. But,
right.
We have we're so lucky to have what we have. And in the day that we have it, we've got so many safety things in place now with everybody having extra sets of bunker gear, and there's just so many safety, and we're looking out for everybody's emotional and mental health now. That was not even heard of in the position that we're exposed to. So for junior people, know your position, be the best you can be at it, and keep asking questions. Keep asking, well, how do we do this? And how can I do this better? And is it okay if I do this? And just be thinking all the time how you can be a better position, and pay attention to your career. It's not a part-time thing to feed your part-time job. If you find that, you're bored or whatever, but don't lose sight of what your bread and butter is, of what your real profession is, and be very good at it.
And what about senior firefighters? Anything special for them you need from them as a captain or a DC?
Well, again, it gets into responsibility, and I don't know whether, some people, some guys have realized, well, that's why I don't write. I don't write for captain because I don't want the responsibility of being a captain. But you still have a responsibility as a first-class firefighter. You're looked up to whether you realize it or not. You are the man, and you're the right wing to your officers.
Right.
So you can be that buffer, and you can be the best you can be at that position, and recognizing your position, and you'll get more out of the job. The same way you go to become a captain, you'll never know more about the job than when you're writing for captain. There's just so much. They touch on first class stuff. They touch on DC command situations. It's everything and everything. It's right across the board. But know your people. Know and their strengths. And all our officers do this. They do. They're so in tune now. There's not much. I don't think. Babysitting with a lot of people, know your strengths of your crews and what you can get, even new guys, and especially new guys, because you don't know what they have to bring to the table.
Well, as a captain with, one of the holes in many services is that you just get thrown basically into the front seat, right? You write a test, you get thrown in the front seat, and you sort of learn as you go, which the job doesn't always let you do that comfortably. Would you look back at your captain self and say, if you're not being offered this type of support to make this change and learn this stuff, and try and speak up and fight for it, but B, like, do you think that they should take any outside courses? Like, would that have been helpful?
Well, it's funny. I never went to the fire college.
Right.
Did I say that too loud? it just never, either things weren't offered or I didn't need them, or when I couldn't go. And it just never worked out. And I was never, voluntold to go.
Right.
But if that's what you want to do to excel at things, don't ever close any doors or open your eyes and use those opportunities, because they're everywhere. And again, that's what people want to get out of their jobs. Some people just want to show up and get their paycheck and move on.
Right. Which is disheartening.
It is a little bit. It is. It's kind of, that don't feel that fortunate to have their job perhaps. But, again, they're all personal choices. And again, the way our shift has moved now, you can have more personal life because you're home more.
Mm-hmm.
You're not at work as much. You are on an hourly basis, but, we can't be firing on all cylinders for 24 hours. Nobody can.
Right.
It's too long.
But these people that wait for, like, if you even if you wait for the training division to come to you, like, they're overwhelmed and understaffed, and they'll teach me about that when I'm supposed to know it, or if I don't do that right, I'll just explain that I wasn't trained on it. It's like there's this personal, at some point there has to be this personal ownership that, well, the calls are still going to keep coming, so even if this is on my own dime, I should probably go and take a course for my own well-being and the well-being of other people.
Yeah, if it I think if you're at the Station 2 and you're doing high level and all the rope stuff, I don't think you're going to go and take a hazmat course.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, if that's going to help your career and you have an interest in that, that's why I think a lot of times we make decisions to put people at halls who have interests in things. It never used to be like that. If you wanted to go to Station 4, that's good because you're going to 3.
Right.
So you're going to be in the opposite side of the city.
Just because.
Yeah, because. Yeah, we don't want happy people. We
Right.
don't want people getting what they want, because then it looks like you get what you want.
Right.
So, but if you want to further your career, I think captains need to stay ever evolving and continually training on their own, and use your rookies, because they have to go through processes. So use that opportunity to help keep up with everybody. And now we're trying to get into the whole Skype thing, which might end up helping in that we discuss things with other halls, and halls that aren't as busy, that have more senior firefighters at it and don't have rookies at it. Maybe they can piggyback off of what this hall is doing, and these guys have this planned for today. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. Well, maybe we should do that. So this is me trying to plug technology
from the guy that doesn't have a personal computer.
Yay, Skype. But I'm trying to see the glass half full.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then as a DC, like, if you had you're seeing the end of your career coming.
Ouch.
Right? Yeah.
I guess.
So
where's it all gone?
Would you give your, transitioning to DC, would you give yourself, I mean, sometimes it's tough, right? You're in it right now, but give yourself some advice. Like, what would you tell yourself to?
Just quit now. I'm kidding. I don't know. I need to try and, I don't know, boy, maybe try and, have a bit of time to yourself through the 24 hours. You don't even sleep well when you're there. Like, I don't know. It's the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. You're responsible for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, you own half the city.
Right.
And
it's not easy to be nonchalant about it, because it's legitimate.
Well, yeah, and you shouldn't be. You should have respect for the position. And I think for the most part I do, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what kind of advice, That's a good one. What do I say to myself? I'll figure that one out on the way home.
What was the most, looking back now, so let's do a little bit of a retrospect, right? How many years left, do you think? You acting captains, listen up.
I don't know.
You start making your list.
I'm staying till I'm 60.
Right, that's right.
I'm going to put 40 years around here.
Yeah, some do, right?
Yeah, I could. Yeah, if I stayed till I was 60, I'd have 40 years on our department. Holy cow.
And what other jobs do people stay that long these days?
Nobody.
What's been the most fulfilling thing?
I think just having the job itself. I think, it's so funny how some people, they say, well, the job does not define me. That's not who I am. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
when I leave this place, I never think about it.
Yeah. I'm not, that's not me, and blah, blah, blah.
But that's view of this place is in the rearview mirror.
Well, newsflash. And as soon as you utter those words to anybody else, they have a preconceived image of you and what you are capable of and you've been exposed to and what you should be able to do, if your child collapses at a mall and, that type of thing. So in part, and a lot of people, lots of people who work volunteer jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So they're volunteer firefighters. They're not switched off ever. Mm-hmm. They're 24/7, which is, wow, that's a lot. So the job follows you whether you want it or not. It's like a tail. Mm-hmm. What are you going to cut your tail off? Like it just is what it is. That's just what happens to you when you join the service.
Right. And I mean, and it's not like we should be, just accepting everything to do it for free. I mean, you still have to, work at being compensated properly and then safety. Like you have to work at having your job be good to you and good for you. But when you free yourself and just feel like this is you, right? I mean, you and I are, if we encounter something on the way to, have lunch today, we're just going to stop. We're just going to pull over and do it. Like if someone fired us tomorrow, we're not going to stop being who we are. No. Do you know what I mean? You would still act that way. So I think when you align the job or the job aligns just naturally with who you are as a person, sometimes you don't feel like you're at work.
No, and nor do you feel like you're doing your work. Meanwhile, you just did something that was incredible.
Yeah, but
because you were the right person at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah,
the right time, I guess.
Yeah, but you love it so much, and you're just happy to be there. That I think you can be unhappy with your workplace, but love your job.
Yeah, well, there's not much to not love about our job. We're provided,
right.
We're provided with so much. You never have to buy clothes. You never have to make a decision on what you're going to wear to work tomorrow.
Right.
You never have to go and spend money on clothing and decide, make fashion choices or anything like that. It's like blue or blue.
Yeah. Fire t-shirt when I'm off.
Yeah.
Uniform when I'm on.
Yeah. Well, DC's coming. Where's my uniform?
Right.
So, yeah, no, there's nothing not to love. And again, there's so many people who would say, I couldn't do your job. Oh, God, I can't do your job.
Right.
It's like, well, there's lots of people who can and love it. So
right.
it kind of fits the personality of the type of people. And we talk about that in the whole peer support thing. You mentioned about that type of personality to do this job.
Right.
So you get a room full of those people. That's a lot of firecrackers in one room.
But I think it's too bad that some people equate being upset with their workplace with then they start not liking their job, and then they either allow themselves, like they do this to themselves, or they allow others or issues to take a day of their job away from them.
Yeah,
right.
Certainly a portion of it. Yeah.
If you have the mentality that no one's going to steal a day of my job from me, because it's my choice, it's my career, right? And why should I let that negativity influence me today? Like I only get so many of these, right? So why should I let you steal a day of my career away from me?
Yeah, that's true. Depends on how, it's so situational. Every day is different. Mm-hmm. You can change the dynamics of a hall with people coming in and people going out and vacations and stuff like that. Every shift, although you work at the same hall, you get different personalities around there, influencing or non-influencing in what way, shape, or form. But yeah, you're right. It is your own day. And you better show up ready to play. Mm-hmm. You can't really show up for a 24-hour shift, having stayed out till 2 a.m, gone to a U2 concert or something, and show up not in very good position to be prepared to do your job for 24 hours.
Yeah. Who's that band? They are just making you feel old. They're still together.
Well, they are, aren't they?
Just jabbing you, yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, it's been a great ride. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. There's nothing that I could say really negatively about it, and it just seems to be getting overall better. Mm-hmm. Just better. We have more people in place that are able to do more things, and we get more things done, and our programs are being helpful, and we're really, a lot of the fire life safety things that we're getting and programs that they don't have the number of people to do the work. We need to do the work as if 3 people are going to reach out and touch the whole city.
Right.
So when we have time, we can help out, and that's all it is really. Mm-hmm. It's just helping out. Mm-hmm. So we're still all part of the same team, and we're still all out there helping the citizens of Brampton and making people more aware and more safe, so that we don't have to get into those horrific positions.
Mm-hmm. So how's your involvement with like charity work and the community on that level and wanting to be involved above and beyond?
Well, you go, you do your boot drives, you participate,
Right.
in positions and times. I did all the bingos and did the MD telethons back then. Oh,
Right.
man, those bingos. And that was back when you could smoke in a bingo lounge. It was crazy. Did I just say bingo lounge? Yeah, that was something else. You had to burn your clothes the next day when you came home. It was terrible.
Which the fire halls used to be like.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
Right.
You used to be able to smoke in Station 1 when I got there.
Right.
Sitting around the kitchen table, finish
Having a
eating and
smoke.
have a dart.
Right.
Wow.
Whose idea was it was yours, wasn't it, for winter camping on top of City Hall for the MD boot drive? Was that your idea?
I don't know. I don't quite remember. I thought
Right.
somebody was doing it, and then somebody put a bug in my ear, and I was like, yeah, I can do that.
Right.
Piece of cake. I
Yeah.
just celebrated 30 years of winter camping.
You did.
Straight, 5 days.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh. That's
Wow.
a highlight.
Which is a whole other podcast.
Yeah. But
So that was unique, right? So the boot drive's been going on for longer than I've been on the job, and
Yeah.
and yet there was this twist, right? It was a way to make it fresh, and so on top of City Hall in the midwinter,
Yeah. Yeah.
It
We were
was
right outside the mayor's office.
pitch tents,
And lived up there.
and then lower the boot.
lower the boot, and people would, part of that whole festivities of downtown, which was, nowadays just rocking. Maybe we
Right.
should do that again. I don't know.
Right. And then we had a guy trying to steal money out of the boot. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well,
Wasn't my boot,
no.
but yeah, I heard. It's like,
He looks like he's going to come drop some money, and he
Yeah.
starts trying to
trying to rifle through.
yeah,
Reel that boot in.
this isn't a
Yeah.
carnival game.
Oh, I know. Totally. But that was a lot of fun, and it's fun doing things that are fun.
And the
You know what I
calendar
mean?
shows when you want to talk about fun.
Oh God, the calendar shows, they were a tremendous amount of fun. But
Right.
hey, it's all for the children. We made a ton of money off of that.
Oh,
Like
Yeah.
tons of money. On
Tens
those
of thousands,
calendars.
60
Yes.
grand
Oh,
plus
per year.
per year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Boy, some of those nights. I one particular year, there was 1,300 people there. 1,300 women there.
Yeah. And 2 nights.
In the curling club, yeah, and I was the last act
Wow.
of the show.
Right.
Wow, you felt like you were one of the Beatles. It was crazy.
You're 15 minutes in the spotlight.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it was only like 3.5, but
Right.
it felt like it.
But and what other job, right? What a
Yeah.
unique.
What other job? Yeah. How that allowed you to, and everyone involved had such a fun time doing it. You know, it was nerve wracking. It was. But, everybody did such a great job, from guys serving drinks all night to, backstage people keeping all that together. And then, having the courage to go out on stage and do something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is our persona. Talked about this with Jordan about how if you've been on for 5 minutes and you're going to get coffee and someone's looking at you and will come up and say thanks for everything you do, and you haven't even done. You just literally put your uniform on this morning.
Yeah.
Like events like that are a reminder, right? That the traditions and the work before you has built a view, a persona of what you are, and
Part of that, yeah.
And people, that's what draws people in and allows this to happen. And so there's a lot to live up to, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Even in fun moments like that, right? You have to be reminded of, like, no one else would show up if we did something else and we put that on.
No, it's
Not in the same way.
Not many professions could.
Not in the same way.
No.
Yeah.
Not in the same way. So we're lucky to have that. And I don't think we exploited it, but we certainly used it to our advantage to
Well, there was an
raise money.
expectation to what people wanted, right?
Yeah.
Something to live up to.
Sure.
Yeah.
We just, like you said, we gave them what they wanted.
Right. And it's easy to look down on anybody. And I find that hard too. We talk about championing things, right? That there's always people that want to push it down. Oh, you're the combat guy. Oh, you're the calendar guy. Oh, you're right. But there are people that just want to delve into these, unique opportunities throughout their career, and it doesn't make them that they're less into the job. If anything, they're more into the job, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
No, it was they were, and they're like the extracurricular activities at school. People who went through school and never did anything after school.
Right.
So those people don't tend to do anything after work.
Right.
They go and they just do their thing, and
And they're missing out.
Well, I think so. I know I would not have, I've made you know, I've achieved many things in my career to get to the position that I have and worked very hard to get there. But I've also done a lot of, you know, off campus stuff that, you know, off the job stuff that's helped and, you know, raised money and raised our profile. And, you know, just as you didn't do it for that, it was just an offshoot and as a result of what it was you did. You know, we didn't start combat for all that recognition stuff. We just did it because it was healthy for you. It was good for the job. And, you know, we were all competitors and we had a very strong group of individuals working together and had a goal in mind.
And by result of that, though, you became tighter and tighter with your family in the fire service.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You were like a little Navy SEAL group there.
Right.
Now there was pushback. You know, there were people who frowned upon what it was you were doing and the recognition you were getting. They didn't like that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the calendar, you know, all of it, right?
Yeah.
Or even mountain biking with your friends after shift, like with your fire family, like it tightens everybody up.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right.
As long as we can, you know, try and keep that going. It doesn't happen naturally now. You have to work at it.
Right.
And again, going back to what you guys talked about, you have to care. You have to,
right.
It has to matter to you.
So I think maybe we could, being conscious of our time, maybe we can leave on that note, right? Where the general advice to people would be you got to make that effort to.
Well, it does take effort. Life takes effort, though. Everything's effort. It's what you're gonna get. What's the payout? Is it worth it? I think so, 100%.
Right.
And I've shown that it does. So.
Awesome.
Get out there and do it. Just keep riding. Yeah.
Thanks for being here,
Scotty. My pleasure.
All right. And hopefully when the third time we do this, it'll be
we'll get it right.
Another episode, not a redo of the first one.
Yeah, we'll get it right.
All right. Okay. Take care, man.
Okay, Scotty. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you.
See ya.
Bye.